My daily streams on Spotify peaked somewhere in September of 2021 and slowly declined all the way until June of 2022. But something changed in July of 2022. And that trend reversed. I started to get more streams every day and started to get more listeners every day. And not only that, I started to get more frequent Discover Weekly pushes for my music. And this led to my biggest Discover Weekly push to date, where I had 193 listeners inside of 1 hour on September 12th of this year. So what changed? Well, let's dig into the details and I'll show you exactly what I did to reverse that trend and head back in the right direction on Spotify. Here's an overview of the entire year of my ad spend on Facebook ads to promote my music on Spotify. Now you can see there are a lot of changes in the amount I spent every day. But for the most part, I stayed around $10 with a few places where I went to maybe $20 or $15, sort of towards the second half of the year. The point that I really want to look at is this part between June, July, all the way to September of this year. The first thing I did was I spent more money. There were a couple days in here where I spent $60 down to 10, tested 15 again, back up to 20. But the interesting part about this is that the amount of reach and impressions I got for my ad spend was not a one-for-one trade-off. So the first time I bumped up to $20 a day, I averaged about 22,000 people reached every single day. When I brought it back down, I came back down to just under 10,000 people reached every day. But when I bumped it back up to $15, my results skyrocketed and doubled. In July, I was spending $20 a day and getting about 22,000 impressions. August, I was spending $15 a day and I was getting about 45,000 impressions. And then when we come up to $20 a day, you can see here in September, I was getting over 80,000 impressions. Now, throughout this time, I tested a lot of different stuff with my ads. I have targeted people all around the world, just in the United States, teenagers, old people, everybody I can think to target on either side and in between to test Facebook advertising to see what gets the best results on Spotify. So let's take a look at some campaigns that I ran in this window of time from July to September, and I'll show you kind of how this corresponded to the amount of ad spend and the results I got here. So let's start with the month of July. This is everything I spent and everything I ran in the month of July of this year. And there are two campaigns that really stick out. First is this Spotify Growth Cities campaign, and second is this just Spotify Growth campaign that I've run for $10 a day all year long. So here in the Cities campaign, you can see I tested a lot of different stuff inside the month of July. This is one of the reasons I was spending $20 a day, because I was running this test. Now in here, I was targeting cities in Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Indonesia at one point, India at one point. I was also targeting cities in the United States, the UK, and a bunch of other kind of more expensive CPM countries. If we come back to the campaign level and we look at my Spotify Growth campaign, you can see that I was doing the same kind of thing in here, but just a little bit different. I was targeting countries inside of these different tiered ad sets, splitting them out to try to figure out kind of where I would get better results based on location targeting. That campaign that I ran in July is what happened pretty much here, where I was spending $20 a day and ended up getting kind of 22,000 impressions every single day as a result. So let's fast forward to August. In August, I ran just two campaigns. I ran my Spotify Growth campaign, which I always run, which sends traffic directly to my Spotify profile. And then I tested a Spotify playlist campaign. And inside this playlist campaign, I tested these two different ad sets targeting different cities. And you can see that I got most of my traffic from tier 2, but I did get a substantial amount of traffic from tier 1. Now, if we come back to July, you can see most of the ad sets I was running were between the ages 18 and 44 in terms of targeting. And then I was also using detailed targeting. But if we come back to August, you can see that I've expanded it out, and now I'm targeting ages 13 to 44, and I'm not doing any detailed targeting because you can't do that from ages 13 to 17. And I did pretty much the same thing inside of my playlist campaign that I did inside of my growth campaign. And that's the section that correlates right here, where I bumped up to $15 a day, which was $10 to growth, $5 to playlist, but my results got exponentially better. And one of the reasons for that is because I narrowed down my cities here and I stopped targeting all of the cities I was testing and just narrowed it into the cities that performed a lot better. So I did my research in July and then narrowed it in here in August. Now let's jump ahead to September. This is where things really got good. I tested all this city stuff and all this variable ad spend in July and August, but then I really narrowed down on what was working the best in September. You can see that the two most successful campaigns that I ran were my growth campaign, which is a conversion campaign. But then I also ran this traffic campaign. So if we come to the traffic campaign, again, I'm doing open targeting ages 13 to 44. I'm targeting only tier 1 countries instead of all these cities globally that I had been testing. And if we come to my growth campaign, you can see it's virtually the same thing. Now, when I switched over to this tier 1 targeting, that's when I really got this big ramp up in this gigantic Discover Weekly boost, because I started accessing listeners who were more similar to the listener base who enjoys music like what I make. And if we come back to our sort of breakdown here, this is where I got this massive bump here in September. And this massive bump where I was getting 70 something thousand impressions a day in tier 1 countries is what led to this huge pump on Discover Weekly on Spotify. So that brings us up to now. The main thing that I have continued on the back of this experiment and realizing kind of how this all played out is that I'm just sticking to tier 1 countries now. I'm still targeting people ages 13 to now 34, and I'm no longer targeting globally. I'm sort of cleaning up my data on Spotify, and the results are speaking for themselves in that I'm getting more and more Discover Weekly pushes because my listener base is getting more homogenous and more sort of similar to the listener bases of artists who I want to be listed alongside on the platform. So as we wrap up 2022, I hope this gives you some insight into some of the things that I did that moved the needle for me on Spotify. I hope you can take them and apply them to your own music marketing in 2023. Now, before I let you go, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. And at the end here, we've got a couple more videos you can check out. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.